Hey, welcome back to the Golden Spoon Podcast. I'm McCall,
And I'm Jeremy.
and today we have Marla Green, who is a nurse practitioner, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her journey of depression and how she got over that, and some tools of how she got over that, and how taboo it is for medicine and like mental health in the African American community. So, are you there, Marla?
I'm here. Thank you guys so much for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. So, wherever you would like to start off, we'll join in, and we're glad to have you on the podcast.
Okay. Well, I'll give a little background. I was really fortunate. I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. Always knew I wanted to help people. And so when I got my nursing degree, I was just really, really excited. After getting my bachelor's degree, I did some travel nursing for a little while. And then I finished up my master's, and then I had my son. And so we ended up moving to Atlanta because I had the first grandchild, and he happened to be male, which was big in my family because we don't have very many men or boys or male, whatever. So, whatever. And so my dad was just ecstatic, and he always wanted a boy, but ended up with two girls. So he was just ecstatic. So we moved to Atlanta, and my job was actually, my dad lived in Covington, and my job was actually in Griffin. And so that was a big distance away. So we were moving closer to my job in Griffin. And we had found a house about 20, 30 minutes away. And so I was moving into a new house. And so I was on 75, and anybody who lives in Atlanta on 75 South, who has driven on 75 South, knows the nightmare of the traffic. And so, it was Memorial Day weekend. It was sunny. I had just gotten my hair done. The world was beautiful. And all of a sudden, I was in an accident. An 18-wheeler rear-ended me.
Ooh.
And so, yeah, it was a 4-car accident. And at the time, I thought I was fine. But, of course, as the weekend progressed, I started having more pain, accidents usually happen. You usually have more pain. It progressively happens, throughout the days.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to see a doctor the Monday after, no, it must have been Tuesday after Memorial Day. And long story short, I ended up being disabled from that accident.
Mm.
So that was really rough. I mean, it was really, really hard because, like I said, I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. My plan, was carefully laid out, and, that just it was like a big screeching halt. And, I didn't know what to do, didn't know who I was anymore. If I wasn't a nurse, who was I? I mean, besides a mom, who was I, as a career?
Yeah, you lost your career identity when that happened. You lost the thing that drives you to do well for your family. And when did this happen? I'm just curious.
Oh, no, that's fine. It happened about 5 years ago.
Okay, 5 years ago.
Yeah. And so I went into a deep depression. I kind of gave into the pain, and I was depressed, and I just kind of checked out. And my mom was here. She was helping me with my son, and my dad and my stepmom. Like I said, they already lived here, and so they were helping me too. And I mean, I was just crushed. I ended up going on antidepressants. Funnily enough, right before I had the accident, I had like a panic attack, like anxiety. I don't remember, I don't know where that had come from, but I remember distinctly going to the doctor because I had some kind of like anxiety attack, but I wasn't like on regular medication at that point.
Yeah.
But afterwards, I've definitely got on some medication. I thought seeing a psychologist for a little while, and I had seen psychologists in the past. I just, I was just angry, and I wasn't ready to talk it through. So I ended up seeing a psychologist and saw one for many years before I was, at a good place. Actually, I remember talking to her 2 years later and, her pointing out to me how angry I was in the beginning and how far I had come, from when I had first started seeing her.
Yeah,
Um,
you
Go ahead.
you had that you had that anger, and it's hard to get over, like, cuz I say that, like, being angry and sad go hand in hand. Like, it's really easy to fall from sadness into anger, or from anger into sadness, and it kind of has no, like, defining line. It just is a kind of unspoken, faded barrier that you can fall into either one of those because they're right beside each other.
And you're right, because I don't even remember when I became angry. I mean, I just thought I was sad and depressed. But you're right. I don't remember like when I started becoming angry. It just kind of happened, and then I'd be sad again. So yeah, yeah, you're very true. That's very true. Um, but thankfully, through medication and through therapy, um, I started getting better. And then really the point that really helped me was that I was looking for a job because, I didn't get as far as I did. I mean, I was making six figures as a nurse practitioner.
Way up.
And, I mean, I was only a nurse practitioner for 4 years. And I was a single mom, or I am a single mom. And, the vision that I had for me and my son is not where we are now. And so I I wanted us to have the same lifestyle that we would have had if I would have continued, to be able to be on my feet and be running around in an outpatient, facility like I was.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for a job, just something I could do from home. Because, a lot of people wonder why I can't work now. And, the number one thing is, consistency. Like I can't do telehealth because I can't be consistent. Like, every day I wake up is, well, if it, am I going to be able to get out of bed today? Am I going to be able to function? Is it going to rain? Is that going to, add to my pain? I mean, it's just, who knows?
Yeah, it's one of
Right.
those things, like, yeah, so to talk about you being disabled, it is, when can I do things consistently? Because, you're going to have those days where it's not going to be consistent, where you're going to have a bad day, or where you're going to have a good day. That's one of the things about, I've noticed about people with mental disability and physical disabilities. You're going to have your good days and you're going to have your bad days, and you have to kind of roll with those punches. It's kind of like a wave back and forth.
Right, right. And it's really hard to explain that to people and to get them to understand. But back to what my epiphany was that really got me out of, well, I don't want to say out of it, but really got me to be determined to do something. That sounds better. It got me to be determined to do something. Because for me, um, you know, for me, I have been in some part of depression my whole life. I've been depressed since I was, I don't know, like in my early 20s, right? But I
Hmm.
wasn't like chronically depressed like I am now. Like I, was a little bit depressed, and I talked to my doctor about it, and I would. I was on medication at one time, but then I was able to come off medication and I felt better. then I wasn't on medication again until, like I said, I had that panic attack, and I didn't even go on medication at that time. And I also mentioned that I did therapy off and on. So it wasn't like I was depressed to the point that I needed medication my whole life. But in my opinion, if you have depression, like, it never totally goes away. Like, it's kind of always there. It just depends on how you manage the depression. It depends on if the depression manages you or you manage the depression. And so for me, the point where I decided that I was going to manage the depression was when I was looking for this job. And it was a health coaching job. And so when I inquired about it, the person was talking about my health, and not just like my body health, but like the whole body, my mental health, my physical health. And she said, she just kind of pointed out whether or not I was healthy. And then she was like, you need to choose your hard. And she wasn't really talking about me. She was just talking like in general.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuck with me, choose your hard.
Yeah.
Is it going to be hard for me to lay here and be in pain? And is it going to be hard for me to be in pain, or am I going to take control of the pain? And that's going to be my hard. And so from that point on, that was like my catalyst to get up and do something. And so I got up and I was like, I'm not going to let this pain take over my life. I'm going to get up. I'm going to be present in my son's life, as much as I can, and I'm going to do something. And so from then on, that's when I started trying to find something that I could do. And, then I eventually ended up, becoming an entrepreneur. But I want to step back for a minute and talk a little bit more about the mental health piece.
Yeah.
Because, my son has ADHD. I just found out last year. And so we have been dealing with his anxiety and depression. And that has been really hard. Not just seeing your child go through something like that, but also for him for access to health care.
Right. And
because, go ahead.
Can I also first off just say, I'm very proud of you for, letting or giving your child access to get tested and see, if, even if they didn't have a problem and you tested your child, that's great. But I'm very proud that you let your child have an opportunity to see, they may have something wrong with them. And if you're just kind of like brushing it underneath the rug, it's not great for them and it's not good for you, because you really want, like you said, your child to have a good life. And Jeremy, I know you have gotten your children checked. So, coming from that point where, how do you see it?
Oh yeah. It's, something that, you can pick out early before it becomes too bad of a problem, until it develops into a major illness or a lifelong, illness that you have to take medication for, like something like bipolar or schizophrenia or something. Some of those could be stopped before, in childhood or in teenage years, just, and just with therapy and some medication then. And kind of like what you were saying earlier, you took for your depression and then came off of it some, and you're a little better, and then had to go back on some. So it's the same thing. It's just getting them into it early.
I thank you for that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now, Jeremy, because I didn't know that before. Now that when my son, before I took my son to go get tested, he was having vague symptoms like stomach ache. I don't feel good. I don't want to go to school. Like, if you don't mind me asking, like, were your kids' symptoms vague, or were they more pronounced, or?
Ours was more behavioral, and it was just stuff that we could see, especially being in two separate households. Me and their mom can communicate back and forth about how he was behaving in each one, and Just in with like her childhood and my childhood and the way that we grew up, and we're just thinking, it's not going to hurt to get him tested, and the worst thing could happen. Let's say he might have ADHD or ADD, and you might take medicine, and it can help him improve in school and help him out with his grades and help him focus and everything.
Yeah, I have been very criticized by my family for taking and having my son tested. In the Black community, African American community, however you identify, it is very taboo to, really to seek mental health care, to go to therapy, to be on medication, any of those things. I know for therapy, the thing is that, we don't want to tell other people our secrets. Like I distinctly remember when I was young that my mom would get on me all the time because I had a big mouth. And I like to tell other people, I like to tell other people stuff. And, for her, it was private stuff. And I would get in trouble all the time. She's like, you didn't have to tell so-and-so that,
Yeah.
And if she listened to podcasts, I'd probably get in trouble today. But,
goodness.
Thank goodness she's not that technologically advanced. But anyway, but yeah, and, medication, African Americans are, notoriously skeptical of medication. The Tuskegee Project was real to them. And, they're just really leery of medications, and especially, mental health medications. They don't want anybody controlling their mind or, in my opinion, it's a lot of fear. And so, I can just tell you how my family reacted, and my family did not react positively. Like my mom feels like, she keeps looking up stuff on YouTube, and she's like, look, you can cure ADD. And I'm like, no, you can't, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, and then my dad and my stepmom are just in denial. They just think that it's my parenting skills and that I'm the one that did this to my son, and that, I need to fix it. And that he doesn't really have it.
It's wild to look across, like, not even just America, but like every country, and see how they deal with things like this, like mental health and medicine. And, some cultures are very diverse with, oh, we believe in this and do this for our entire community. And, especially America, I think we all need to get behind, like, being more positive and open, and, allowing people to not be okay and, like, talk about it, because that's why we're here, and that's why you're here as well, to advocate for good mental health for everybody, even, medical help for everybody, because it's so important that everybody can be okay in their current situation.
Yeah. And bringing up, good mental health for everybody. The other thing is, my son, being male, that's very looked down on, is because, he's male, he should be strong enough to overcome whatever, mental weakness he has. I hate to say it like that, but that's kind of how it's looked upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
We actually have an episode on that, that's specifically talking about how, that rub the dirt into it mentality, or, suck it up, buttercup, you'll be all right. Because that's kind of how pretty much all kids were taught.
At least males, like, especially like males in the, Southern people kind of just are like, all right, well, rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine. Or, suck it up, you'll be fine. Don't cry. You don't need to cry. You're a young guy. Don't show emotion. You're taught, sometimes at a young age to, like, no, you don't need to cry. That's not how guys do.
We don't have time for that.
Yeah, we don't have time for that. Yep. And it's so sad, because you want your kid to be able to come to you and tell you every emotion that they're feeling. You don't want them to just be like, well, I'm going to hide this because I've always been taught to hide it, and then it develops and compacts and compounds over time to something that could potentially be very bad.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah, I'm getting my son help as far as a counselor or a psychologist has been rough because, being a single mom, I wanted him to have somebody that looked like him because he doesn't have very many positive male role models in his life since his dad is not involved. And so, but finding a Black male counselor or psychologist is like finding a unicorn.
Yeah.
I mean, they are just very far and few between.
Especially pediatric.
Yes, especially pediatric. Yeah, the one that we did find, we ended up having a difference of opinion, and then he quit answering our phone calls.
Oh, wow. Goodness.
It was a bad situation. But, I mean, it's just really, really hard to find Black male or even sometimes even just Black therapists in general. As pediatric Black therapist.
Yeah.
So yeah. But you just do what you got to do. Thankfully, I did find him someone recently because he got denied for his 509. But that's another tangent I could go off of, and that's not what we're talking about. So anyway, yes. But yes, definitely. If people who are depressed or, anxious, don't wait till it overtakes you and, you feel like, you can't cope or at the end of your leash, like we were talking about earlier, like Jeremy said earlier, like we were talking about earlier, make sure you get help early, so that it doesn't turn into something that, it shouldn't have in the first place.
And hopefully you, maybe you taking, your son to go get checked out, even though that, you're not seeing it up front, that it's making that little bit of small change within your family and everything too. And maybe someone else that's kind of questionable about taking one of their children, or there's a friend of the family that's seeing, what you're doing, it's kind of breaking down some of those barriers. Cause really, I think that's why a lot of, my family and my ex-wife's family and stuff was so accepting of it, because of my mental illness, and they saw like what I went through, and they're like, okay, wow, we need to actually talk about how we feel and, what's going on. And so my entire family and everything is real in tune with our mental health now, with what's going on. We have like quarterly meetings, and we check in with everybody in extended family now, because all the siblings are, older and married and stuff. So we all get together and check in. So it's crazy that, just thinking probably, I don't know, 6 years ago, it would, the thought process would have been different. If things wouldn't happen the way that it happened in my life, then, going just for therapy or asking for help, they, may not be so pushy about it or anything, but I'd probably look at it a little differently.
That is, I'm so happy for you. I mean, that is totally awesome. Because can you give me some tips? Because I'm telling you, my family is totally not accepting. I mean, even my sister came out and, was telling them that she was depressed. And I mean, like, I don't even talk about it anymore with my family.
The biggest thing, first, I have bipolar 1 with severe depression. So when I'm trying to explain my illness to someone, in the family or out of the family, especially people who are really pushy or just don't they can't really fully understand it. They're just like, well, just, don't be sad or whatever. And so I'll pretty much tell them, well, put a tray with 2 cups in your passenger seat and fill 1 cup up with hydrogen peroxide and fill the other cup up with baking soda, and then start driving down the road. And then once you start hitting bumps, those 2 are still going to splash into each other, and it's going to cause a chemical reaction. Now try to separate those 2 chemicals while still driving down the road and basically neutralize the situation. You can't. You have to actually, pour another chemical in there or water or something to, dilute it and everything. So that's where my medicine comes in. You know, I have to take my medicine because if my chemicals in my brain splash over and the wrong ones touch and everything, they get too out of control, the medicine kind of helps everything. You know, the chemicals still go up and down, and I still have episodes, and I still have bad days and good days, but it keeps it all leveled out. And explaining it more in layman terms, I guess, is easier for people that are the ones that are real kind of pushy, like, oh well,
Adverse to
they're just
it.
going through a mood thing, you know, they'll grow out of it, it's just a phase or something like that. You can just be like, well, you know, maybe it's not. You know, there's chemicals in our brains, and some chemicals are different than the others, and you know, we're not all exactly the same. So
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Maybe if I explain it that way, they'll understand about my son. Because I mean, for me, I don't even care anymore. But it's about my son, and and their relationship with him that really makes me sad.
yeah,
So thank you for sharing that.
no problem.
And you want, the people in your life that you have had in your life to be in your son's life too. And it can get hard when they're just kind of standoffish or, adverse to understanding your situation or his situation. And that can get, upsetting. And just trying to, I guess what Jeremy said is get them to understand that, or like try to put try to explain it to them how he sees things, or how, if you ever wanted to touch back on the topic of you with them, how you view things and how, your mind works, or how your disability affects your depression.
Okay. Okay.
What were some of the tools that helped you? I'm really curious about that.
Mostly seeing my therapist.
So,
Talking to my therapist really helped, because it was the pandemic. A lot of when I really was talking to my therapist was during the pandemic, so I couldn't quote unquote see her. I had to talk to her over the phone. Um, but that really helped me, and actually she wasn't like your typical therapist, or the therapist that I had been to in the past. Let me say that, where like she gave me homework, or or things like that. Really, a lot of what she did was just let me talk, because I don't have a big support system. Because my parents don't really support me that much. So yeah, she really just let me talk, and really talking and just like getting it off my chest helped me a lot, because it was no longer pent up inside. The other thing that helped me was working on my health, actually. I did do health coaching for a little while, but first I had to work on my health. And it wasn't just being healthy, like my weight. It was personal development.
Yeah,
And I had never done personal development before. I didn't know what that was. But yeah, like thinking about my goals, thinking about like I'm an emotional eater. So thinking about why I was eating emotionally, and then going back and thinking about why I was reacting the way I was. I'm going to use my family again. For example, like when my dad would say something to me that really triggered me. Why was I really reacting that way? It not only helped me, but it helped my relationship with him, so that I wouldn't be so angry, which in turn helped me even more, so that, my anger.
yeah.
So yeah, the personal development probably, yeah, that really, really helped me. And then when I did the personal development, that just helped me be a more positive person in general. Because before I was just like, why did this happen to me? I did everything right. You know, I went to school. I went and got a job. I've never been without a job. I thought that I did everything that I was supposed to do. And then all of a sudden, I got hit. Why me? Why me? Man, man, man.
Yeah.
And instead of looking at it like that, I started looking at, what? It could have been worse. I could not be here anymore.
Right.
My son could have been in the car. I started looking at it like that. And then the other thing was, when I started trying to find my passion again, what can I do that's going to bring me joy? So those were the 4 or 5 things, I kind of lost count, that really helped me. That really helped me not be so depressed. That continues to help me not be so depressed. The thing that really helps me continue not be so, like when I get down, or like when I'm having a really bad day and I'm really hurting, which contributes to my depression, is, if I think, what, it could be worse, or, I'm like, okay, if you just get up and do one thing towards, the conferences, because that's what I like to do, then, you'll feel better. And usually if I can get myself to just do one thing, that I can, stay up and do more, because then, I'll start feeling better, because it makes me happy.
Oh yeah, we totally agree. That's something that we've preached about, was just getting up and, even if it's just brushing your teeth or just taking a shower, just something, a goal that you can accomplish, to say that you actually did it, to mark it off the list. And, it brings you a little bit of that serotonin and that satisfaction, to keep you going through the day.
Yeah. And I am going to go get myself tested to see if I have ADD, because I really think I do. After studying about Sean, I was in denial when they told me Sean had ADD, because I really thought he had something. I was ready for them to say anxiety. I was ready for them to say depression. But when they said ADD, I was like, no, he doesn't. No, they're supposed to be a little hyperactive or, something else. No, he doesn't have that. And then when I started reading about it, I was like, wait a minute, this is me.
Yeah.
This is not my son, this is me. So yeah, of learning about him and his ADD has made me look at myself a little bit differently too. So helping him, be more organized and, try to pay more attention has also helped me and my procrastination, which is a big thing about ADD. So that's also helped.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm glad that you're positive. I mean, I can tell that, just by talking to you, that you do have a positive outlook on life, even though, things haven't gone your way. You've still kept that positivity in your life. You've kept light in your life. And yes, darkness has gotten in a couple of times, but I can tell that you're still a really positive person.
I've got to be here for him, and I'm the only parent he has, so I've got to be here for him, and I don't want him to be all mopey and yuck. I need him to be a positive person too, and when you have kids, that kind of helps you too.
Oh yeah,
it helps you want to be a better person.
Yeah, it keeps your drive going, and it keeps you in check, at least for me, because I didn't used to take care of myself like I used to until I had kids and start taking them to the doctor. And I'm like, oh, maybe I need to start going to the doctor more.
Yeah.
At least talking about my physical health. I didn't take care of myself at all. After I left my pediatrician, I was just like, didn't ever have a doctor again.
I definitely take better care of myself. I mean, because I think back to when I was single, didn't have any responsibilities. I'm like, I would just sleep all day. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't leave the house. I wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I can't do that with him. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything you'd like to say before we say our goodbyes and everything?
just want to say to your listeners that, you know, they can do it. You can do it. You know, I know that you guys doubt yourself sometimes, or I know I do, but, you know, you can do it. And, you know, don't doubt yourself if you feel like you need to go get help, you know, and it just starts with asking. And that could be a friend or a neighbor or, you know, anything like that. It just have to ask for help.
You're so right.
You're wonderful. I just want to let you know you're wonderful.
Thank you.
Would you like to, you can plug any of your socials if you would like people to find you. Would you like to plug any of your social media?
Sure. If you guys know any nurse practitioners that are looking for education, please direct them to, I'm on all social media platforms at Educatrix, A as in Apple, P as in Paul, S as in Sam. And then my website is it's just educatrixseminars.com. I always want to say www, but it's not that. It's just educatrixseminars.com.
Fantastic.
That's it.
All right. Well, if you'll stay on the line after I give us our outro to get some more information and talk a little bit more, that'd be fantastic. I'm going to do our outro and then we'll talk after, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, for everybody, for listening. Please go support Marla. We appreciate her for coming on the show. She's a very positive person, and we appreciate that here at the Golden Spoon. I'm McCall.
And I'm Jeremy.
And we'll talk to y'all next time. Thank you for listening to us and Marla on this episode of the Golden Spoon.